people in the general population and people in the business world who are in jobs or running businesses or at high level in businesses and are experiencing a lot of stress from that. So we've been doing that for a long time. And look, if you're in an executive role professionally, you're probably facing a bunch of different things. You probably have a lot of responsibility. You probably have a lot of demands. You probably make a lot of demands on yourself. There's a whole bunch of pieces to this, but what is really common is that people who are executives can tend to reach a point, even if they're really smart, really hardworking, they reach a point where they either experience burnout or they just realize they're stressed a lot of the time, or they're even that's even bleeding maybe into some of how they're interacting with people at work, or maybe it's bleeding into your home life. Maybe you have trouble falling asleep or wake up in the middle of the night with your heart racing and you're stressed. Maybe you just often feel stressed or overwhelmed. Do you ever sort of have trouble going to sleep specifically because you're kind of ruminating about stuff going on at work? That's really common if you're experiencing that. If you ever beat yourself up for your perception of not doing enough, right? That's also more common than you might think. Maybe some of you feel this way, where you'd really like to enjoy the value, you're in a position of value and you really want to enjoy that and take stock in that and sort of get the full experience out of that. But maybe your experience is that becomes a source of stress and not a source of feeling valuable and really enjoying it. Or maybe it's a mix. Maybe it's a mix of those two things. Do you ever find yourself ruminating or having just repetitive thoughts in your head, like just repetitive stress-producing thoughts that are that are uncomfortable and you don't know how to get out of that cycle? If you ever struggle with this is common too. If you ever have a sort of sudden onset of stress, overwhelm, or exhaustion, meaning you're actually feeling okay, you're kind of going through your day or your evening, and then all of a sudden it hits you like all at once in a very strong way. So if you're having those, then you may have some other things that come from that. So you may notice, check in with yourself, see if this is true for you. You may notice that sometimes you have big reactions to small inconveniences, right? If you're honest with yourself, some of you may notice that. You may notice yourself kind of blowing up at people sometimes for reasons that you realize later were out of proportion, were not as important as your big reaction was. You may sometimes have emotional reactions that you might, I'm not calling them this, but you might have reactions that you're calling an overreaction, or you may find it embarrassing later on. You may have a sense of panic attacks or panic-like attacks. You may find yourself getting really frustrated and maybe even breaking something like in your home, like breaking a glass or something. That's probably not all of you, but probably a few of you are having that experience. So if you're having any of those things, I just listed a lot of things there. If you're having any of those things, then what is in all likelihood going on is that you are having undiagnosed neurocrashes. So we're going to spend some time talking about that today because that's pretty important, and it's a very underappreciated and often just not understood concept. So we want to talk about it with you. And first of all, let's talk about what a neurocrash actually is. A neurocrash is when your brain and nervous system get overwhelmed to the point where you can no longer regulate yourself. Okay, you're sort of clicking fully into fight or flight survival mode, and you're no longer able to regulate yourself. So that's why all those things I just listed, that's why someone would be doing that. If they reach the point where their brain and nervous system are so overwhelmed that they can no longer regulate themselves in that moment, I don't mean permanently, but you can't regulate yourself at that time when you're feeling that feeling, then you're going to have a neurocrash. And the problem is, and this is, look, it's okay to have a neurocrash. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to feel like, hey, I could use some mental health help right now. That's totally okay. But what's interesting is that we just don't understand our own systems. And therefore, we don't see how the way we're operating, the way we're thinking, the way we're dealing with our emotions, how that actually builds up and leads to dysregulation and neurocrashes. We don't necessarily see the connection there. And so then we're going to have unexplained or unplanned, unexpected eruptions, usually followed by regret after that, right? We usually regret it afterwards. We might feel a sense of, I don't know, kind of feeling out of control sometimes. So it's okay though. This is not something, if you are experiencing this, you're definitely not going through it alone. I can assure you of that. We work with a lot of people who struggle with this, a lot of executives who struggle with this. And so this is the kind of thing where it's really important to understand the mechanism behind this. A lot of our negative mental and emotional states come from what we would say is using your brain wrong. That's right. A lot of us, we kind of use our brains wrong, right? And it's okay. Again, a lot of people, nobody teaches us this, so it's not surprising we would do this. And what's cool to notice about this is that you're actually very well equipped, but you may not always know how well equipped you are. You may not always feel super well equipped. And that's because you might be using your brain wrong. So we can do this with anything. Like, it's not just with our brain. I can remember going to the gym. This is decades ago when I was in my 20s. And I can remember going to this machine. I was probably in my early 20s at this point. And it looked like it was a machine for working abs. That's what I thought it was. You'll recognize it. Every gym has this machine. It's a stationary machine. It doesn't move. And it has a pole going up like this, or sort of two poles. And then it has these round kind of cushioned rollers, and it has two square pads. So what I thought it was that I would hook my feet into these rollers and then put my behind on the padding, and I would lean back and do like an extended sit-up. Now, every time I tried to do this, it felt really uncomfortable. I felt like I would like kind of pull up a muscle in my back. It didn't feel good, didn't feel right. And so after trying this many times, I was like, okay, this machine's not a good machine. It's just not well built for this kind of exercise. And also, or maybe there's something wrong with my body composition that I'm just not built to like work this machine well. So I didn't do it for a few years. Then I moved to a different part of the country. I joined a different gym, and I got a free session with a personal trainer that came with my membership. And so he's going with me from machine to machine. We get to that machine, and I tell him, I go, hey, look, let's just skip this machine. This machine doesn't work well for me. It just strains my back. It doesn't feel good. And he goes, are you doing it right? I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm doing it right, but you're welcome to demonstrate it for me. And so he gets on it to demonstrate. And as soon as he gets on it, I realize it's not just that I've been doing this wrong. It's that I've been doing it completely wrong. It's actually not an ab machine. It's a lower back machine. And I'm sitting on it facing the ceiling and like leaning back. But the way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to put those cushions are not supposed to go on your behind. They're supposed to go on your sort of pelvic bone, your hips basically. And those round things, you don't hook your feet into them. Your heels go up against them, and you're facing the floor. You guys have seen these machines. They're in like every gym. And you actually bend down this way and then straighten, and then bend down straight, and you're working your lower back here. Anyway, I was in my 20s. I just didn't know. I was using it completely wrong. As soon as he showed it to me, obviously I was like, oh, that's how. And then I tried it that way, and it felt perfectly comfortable. It felt perfectly useful, and it did strengthen my lower back, and I didn't feel like I was straining myself. So the reason that's obviously just an analogy, but the reason why I give you that analogy is this is what happens with our brain. We think we're supposed to be using it one way. We're supposed to be thinking one way, approaching things one way, solving problems in one way. And then it's not working for us. It's causing us a lot of stress. It's stressing us out. It's causing us to have reactions we don't want to have. And so we think that's us. Either like there's something wrong with us, there's something wrong with our brain, or maybe we think this is just the human condition. This is how everybody works. But actually, sometimes you just need someone else to come along and show you, oh, actually, the way you're using this isn't working. Here's a different way you could use it. That's the way it's designed to be used, and it's going to feel really different and work a lot better for you. So this comes back to how effectively or not effectively we use our own brains. It's really kind of amazing because we get very used to doing things a certain way. it doesn't mean that that's the best way, right? It's just the way that we're used to doing it. It doesn't mean that we can't do it a different way, and that different way might really, even though we're not used to it, might work a lot better for us. So if you're stressed or anxious or experiencing neuro crashes as an executive, you're not alone, but you probably are using your brain wrong. And you can't be strong when you use your brain wrong. That's just something Kate and I've seen. You can't be strong when you use your brain wrong, and you can't feel good when you got problems under the hood.